I'm going to say a phrase, and here's my invitation. I'm going to say a phrase, and I want to invite you to think about it. In fact, if you're the kind of person who journals or writes down something in your notebook, I'm going to invite you to write this phrase down. Maybe it's in your phone, in that notes section. Here's the phrase that we want to wrestle with this evening. The phrase is this: your posture, say your posture. Your posture prepares you, say your posture prepares you. Your posture prepares you to prioritize. Say that with me. Your posture prepares you to prioritize. I know it's a mouthful. Your posture prepares you to prioritize, but let me tell you what I mean. Little boy is out in the outfield. You picture it? He's out in the outfield. He has his T-shirt on that's sponsored by the gas station in town, and he has his hat on that mom is so proud to put that on him. He has his new glove from Walmart, and he has his shoes on, but he's out in the outfield, and he's out there, and he's kind of just like digging around in the grass of the dirt, right? And the ball gets hit in his direction, and he's not paying attention. And you know what happens at that moment. Everyone is yelling at this kid to pay attention. And the very next time, right, coach is going to yell. What's coach going to yell? Get in ready position. And I don't know if that's exactly the phrase. Never been a huge baseball fan, more of a football, hockey, volleyball guy myself. But in this moment, you know this, like this little kid is supposed to get down and have his glove ready to go. I actually saw this out here at the ball fields here at the college today. I went out there, they were having tryouts or practice or something like that. And as they were having pitching and batting practice, you could see the outfielder. As the pitch was wound up, as the pitch was delivered, as the batter got ready to swing, you could see the outfielder react with his posture, just a step forward, just a step to the side, just a step back, a posture that was ready to prioritize catching that ball. Your posture prepares you to prioritize. Let me give you another example. A conductor in band. Some of you in band, do you know what in band, high school band? Okay, yeah. They play instruments, they don't yell. All right, so high school band, Conductor takes out that wand thing, the Harry Potter wand, right? And the baton. I know it's not my forte, but see what I did there? But the conductor takes out that little wand, taps the music stand, right? And makes that little tinking sound. And all of a sudden, I played 6th grade trumpet, right? All of a sudden, instruments come up. And there's a posture of readiness, and their eyes are hopefully paying attention to the music. Their posture is preparing them to prioritize. My son is right now a freshman in high school, going to be a freshman. He's 6 foot tall. He runs cross country. But I'm trying to teach him how to drive my truck. Pray for me. And as we do, like one of the rules of driving is, hey, hands on the wheel, 10 and 2, put your phone down, right? Turn around and look behind you when you back up. There's a posture for driving. Right? Posture prepares you to prioritize. Or maybe here's another one, right? A young man gets down on one knee, pulls out a little box. Aww. Right? That was a long time ago for me, right? And pulls out a little box. And what's that posture communicate? His posture communicates he's going to prioritize her above all else. One more. A little kid in kindergarten class. Maybe it's at your church. Little kid is told to sit down crisscross applesauce style, right? There's a carpet there, and so he or she sits down crisscross applesauce style. And he or she is communicating to the teacher, I am here, and I'm ready to listen. Your posture prepares you to prioritize. So here's my question for you as we begin this evening. So what does the posture of your life communicate about your priorities? Because your posture also points to your priorities. Like the kid in the outfield, he was not prioritizing catching the ball. He was prioritizing whatever, the dirt in the ground, the bugs next to him. Like those were his priorities. He's distracted for sure. And sometimes your distractions actually point out the fact that you've not prioritized the right things. So, you know this, like we mentioned this morning, we're not only talking about your physical posture this evening or today, we're also talking about the posture of your emotions, the posture of your thoughts, the posture of your spiritual life, of your soul. What does your posture in your life right now say about you? Our text today, if you have your Bibles, I would want you to have those and open those up if you have them, again, on your phone or a physical Bible with you. We're going to be in Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 38. It's the end of the chapter in Luke chapter 10, and it's a story of two sisters. I don't know if we know which one's the older sister or younger sister. You can maybe create some stereotypes. But one of them, her name is Martha, and the other sister, her name is Mary. Say Martha, and I want you to say Mary. And what I want you to notice in this text is that both Martha and Mary take a different posture in this story during this encounter with Jesus. Here's what's crazy. Jesus is coming through town, and he pops in for a surprise visit. Could you imagine your reaction if Jesus popped in at your house? I don't know, like mom maybe would be like, what just happened, right? Go clean your room, right? And so there's a little bit of a panic that happens in one of the postures, but I want you to ask kind of this question. What are the reactions, the postures of these two sisters in Luke 10, 38 through 42? Let's read this together. Okay, let's look at this. It'll be on the screen as well. Here's what it says. Now, as they went on their way, that's Jesus and the disciples traveling, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village. A woman was there named Martha, and she welcomed him. Notice it's into her house. This is Martha's home. And she had a sister. Her sister is called Mary. And Mary sat at the feet of the Lord, or the Lord's feet, and listened to his teaching. Say listened. Say sat. So Mary sat and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted. Say distracted. Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him, which is Jesus. She said, Lord, don't you care? Don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Say alone. Lord, tell her to help me. But the Lord answered her, and I don't know his tone, y'all. I don't know how he said her name. I could take a guess. We'll talk about it in a minute. But maybe it's something like this. Martha, Martha, you're anxious and troubled about many things. But one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. You see, it's interesting in this text that we find both postures of Martha and Mary. Can I kind of put a label on both of them? Here's the first label that we're going to talk about. It's the posture of Martha in the text. I want to put the posture label this way. Martha has a posture of distraction. Say posture of distraction. Martha has a posture of distraction. I think we can relate to that. We're going to talk about Mary's in just a minute. She, I think, takes on a posture of discipleship. Say posture of discipleship. So you kind of get where we're going. You kind of frame this up right now. Okay, I hope there's a few things for you to kind of listen to and hang on to. There's two options, and Martha takes on this posture of distraction. Look at what it says in verse 40. Martha was distracted with much serving. Can you see her? Can you see her as the disciples? I mean, Jesus has 12 disciples, and who knows how many other people following him around. It's her house. They knock on her door. And all of a sudden, she needs to feed them. This is ancient Eastern hospitality, after all. And it's not like she can just go to the microwave and be like, hey, Pete, you want some pizza rolls? That's not how it works, right? She's not able to be like, hey, we're out of bread. Jesus, maybe she can't do that, actually. And so in this story, Jesus has just interrupted her interruptions. He's added to her to-do lists. Can you maybe relate to her a bit? Have you ever had those moments in life where you're like, I already had enough to do, and then we're going to add this? Do you sometimes treat Jesus like just one more thing on your to-do list? Martha was distracted with much serving. Can you see it on her face, her stress, her frustration? I've had my staff and my family come up to me just even this last 6 months and say, are you okay? You look tired. You look like you're getting old. And I'm like, ouch. I mean, is that what it looks like? Can you see that angst in her life? Notice what the Bible says about her. Both the description of her here and later, Jesus is going to use two words. The description of Martha is this. Her posture is this. She's distracted, she's anxious, and she's troubled. She's distracted, she's anxious, and she's she's troubled. Those first two words, distracted and anxious, they're actually synonyms. They're parallel words. Both of them have this connotation. The connotation is of being pulled by something. So I'm distracted. My thoughts are being pulled away by other things. And it's not even just like one thing. It's like a pack of wolves of things coming and like tearing at your thoughts, pulling them in different directions, tearing you to shreds. You ever felt that way? Distracted. Anxious, of course, is the same thing, and I don't want to oversimplify the words or say more than what's really there, but can you kind of just see this spiritually and physically in Martha? Again, the pack of wolves coming and just pulling on her in all different directions, her task lists coming in and tagging on her and tearing on her in all different directions. She's distracted and she's anxious. The third word the Bible uses, she's troubled. She's troubled. I've kind of just remembered these three words with kind of the alliteration of D-A-T, dat. She's dealing with all dat. Sorry, that sounds like a bad dad joke. But I'm like, no, I resonate with that. I mean, you get it? I mean, there's a reality of like, no, I like that. Dat describes me. Distracted, anxious, and it leaves you troubled. The word troubled is this word in the original language that implies noise or chaos or commotion. Can you see that in Martha? Distraction, anxiety, she's anxious and troubled. The posture feels eerily familiar, doesn't it? It reminds me so often of kind of the response, the posture I have to the world around me. Maybe a parallel would be this. Have you ever, I don't know if you've ever, purchased this game on your phone, but it's a terrible game. It's probably free. But there's a game that I played a number of years ago. It's an airport app, and it's a game. And on that game, your job is to land airplanes at an airport on runways and help them to take off. You just like swipe to help them take off and swipe to help them land. You redirect them by drawing a little squiggly line. And it's great. I mean, it's great fun. But the problem is this. The planes all go at a different speed. They're all different sizes, and they get faster, right? And your job is to help all of them land and all of them take off without anything crashing into each other. And you're like, oh, by the end of the time of the game, like you're so frazzled. You're like, oh. And boy, that app, that game, that really does describe us. I flew through Atlanta to get here. Some of you, your life looks like the Atlanta airport. Like, you're just trying not to, make the day happen, and it's chaos, but you're trying not to let anything get delayed or crash into one another. And at the end of the day, no wonder you're going, oh, I'm tired of all that. Here's the thing. Notice Martha's priorities. She was distracted with, notice, much serving. And Jesus in verse 41 will say, you're anxious and troubled about many things. What does this say about her priorities? Man, they're spread out, weren't they? They were everywhere. Her priorities were all over the place. And I get it. I'm trying to be a good dad. I'm trying to be a good husband. I'm trying to do great work. I'm trying to do good at these kinds of things. I'm trying to be a good disciple. Like, I get it. Trying to handle finances, trying to stay somewhat physically healthy as I get old. I'm like, I get it. Distracted by many things. Like maybe you would resonate with the lyrics. Maybe Martha would resonate with the lyrics. Like, I get overwhelmed so easily. My anxiety creeps inside of me, makes it hard to breathe. What's come over me? I feel like I'm somebody else. Like, I don't know. Like, my daughter had that as a theme song of their show choir last year, and I'm like, I get that song. I don't know that I get all of it. But here's the thing. I think Martha got it. But she's doing good things, right? Like, she's doing good things. I mean, the text actually says she's distracted by much. Here's what it says, verse 40, much serving. You know what that word translates? The word translates to the word ministry. She was doing much ministry. In fact, she was serving Jesus literally that day. Can you get distracted by serving Jesus? Can you go to MOVE and go to all the sessions? Do some of the activities. And be around Jesus but not with Jesus? Can you go to church, go to youth group, attend FCA, go to see you at the pole, go on a missions trip, serve at the homeless shelter, and be busy doing all the things, much serving, many things, but really just distracted and not actually with Jesus? Here's Martha's reaction. Here's the toll that it takes. She says, Lord, don't you care? In verse 40. Maybe your posture of distraction has actually caused you to say something like this in desperation. I don't know how she comes up to Jesus in this moment. Can you kind of picture it, though? Maybe a crack in her voice, a tear that's kind of welling up in her eye. There's a little bit of bitterness toward her sister. There's some sibling rivalry obviously going on there. And she's like, Jesus, don't you see? Don't you see all the things that I'm doing? Don't you see me over here working so hard for you? Lord, don't you care? Notice how it continues. Don't you care that my sister has left me to serve here all, here's that word again, alone? Posture of distraction will often lead you to feeling like Jesus doesn't care and you're all alone. And then she actually has in this moment kind of this moment where she has called Jesus Lord, but notice what she does next. Lord, tell her to help me. Wait, I thought the roles got reversed a bit there. Like his job is to tell her what to do, not her to tell him what to do. I think this comes out of her kind of moment of distraction, her posture of distraction, this heaviness, this trouble in her soul and in her life. Lord, don't you care? I'm all alone. Tell her to help me. In fact, 3 times she's going to use that phrase, me, me, me. She has feelings of bitterness and loneliness and selfishness. But it's then that we see Jesus come into the story. And I love this about this story because it's not just about the posture. In fact, it's not even about the posture of Martha or Mary. But Jesus comes in this moment. He has a posture of compassion toward Martha. Like, what would Jesus say to you in this moment? What would Jesus want to say to you this evening? What would Jesus want to say to me as I study this text? Notice how Jesus answers her, verse 41. He says her name. He says, Martha, Martha. It's like a good shepherd who knows her name. Martha, Martha, I see you out there all wandering around like the hamster from this morning, the whatever that is, right? And Martha, Martha, like I see you all running around, like come back here. I don't know his tone. But here's what I find interesting. Whenever a name is used twice in the Bible, it oftentimes is in the context of compassion or grief or sadness. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jesus cried out over the city. In the Old Testament, David cries out for his son who has passed away. Absalom, Absalom. There's evidence to suggest that Jesus' doubling of Martha's name is a response not only to get her attention, but also an expression of his compassion. Martha, Martha. Can you maybe hear him whispering your name if you're troubled with the posture of Martha? I mean, I think Jesus is the kind of shepherd who can speak a name even in a place like this. And I don't think it's just like a parent using like the middle name to like get you in trouble. You know, James Wallace, that's my middle name. Don't ever use it. But I think it's Jesus actually getting your attention, but also revealing his compassion. Martha, Martha. I think Jesus saw her distraction, her anxiety, her troubled heart, and he did care even though she felt like he did not care. I think like what Peter says a little bit later. Peter's there, by the way. Peter's going to write this. He's going to say in 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. He cares for you. My daughter came down. There was a storm the other day. We live near Joplin, Missouri. Tornadoes are a thing there, as you well know. And she's afraid of storms. She's 10 years old. She should maybe be too old for this. But she came down into our room, and she's just like, Mom, I'm afraid. Her voice was trembling. She couldn't go to sleep. She's like, I can't go to sleep. And this verse was on my mind. And I said, hey, here's this verse that's been helping me lately. Cast all your cares on him, your anxieties on him. He cares for you. Martha, Martha, you're anxious and troubled about many things. And I want you to hear this. Jesus wants to be with you. He doesn't just want all that you do. Like, Mary knew this. And this is what Mary does in the text. She actually knew this, that Jesus wanted her. So she actually sets down some of her tasks to the angst of her sister, but sets down some of the to-dos for the moment and says, the most important thing I can do right now is prioritize you with my posture. And so Mary takes a different posture. She takes a front row seat at Jesus' feet. She sits down, crisscross applesauce style at Jesus' feet. And Mary takes on this countercultural posture for their day and for ours. And she takes on the posture of a disciple. I want you to hear this. Mary's posture, it says this, she sat and she listened. Say it with me. She what? She sat and she listened. Notice Mary says nothing in this entire text. Apparently, Jesus is enough. Mary takes on this posture. She sits and she listens at the feet of Jesus. That's back in 10, verse 39. She takes on this posture of attention and submission. She wanted to be with Jesus and not just content being around him. He was teaching, and she wasn't about to miss out. Now, here's the crazy thing. Jesus was the creator of the cosmos. I mean, you saw the sky today, the beautiful color tones. I'm partially colorblind, but even I was like, man, this is amazing. The clouds as they're floating by. Like, he finger painted the universe into existence, and he's sitting in her living room. He spoke, and it became, and he's speaking. I probably want to pay attention. The one who created rest, who worked 6 days but says it's good, and he stopped, and he was still, invites her in her living room to put down her work and rest. Like, why would you want to miss this? And so Mary does. She just gets down and she sits down in kind of this moment. I've wondered, like, what do you think Jesus was saying? Like, it just says that he was teaching, that he was speaking. It doesn't say what he said. Maybe he's saying something like this. Mary, when he's speaking to his disciples, y'all can in me, I want you to hear this. You can rest from performing. You can rest from proving and pursuing and pretending and positioning. You can rest from promoting and pleasing. You can rest. Maybe he said this, I know your problems and your pain. I see the headlines. I know the chaos in your world. But you can rest in my power and in my presence and in my promises. And you don't have to worry. I calmed the storm. I created all this. I created the world. I created you. I've got this too. Whatever it is, I don't know what Jesus said. Maybe he's teaching on Psalm 23. And Mary's like, you're talking about like the Lord being the shepherd and sitting down next to still waters. Maybe I'll sit down at his feet because he's my shepherd. But notice her priority. She focused on one thing. Going back to verse 41. Martha, Martha, you're anxious and you're troubled about many things. But verse 42, but one thing is necessary. One thing is needed. And Mary has chosen. Say the word chosen. Mary has chosen. She made a decision. Do you know you make 35,000 decisions every day according to one study? It sounds a little bit preposterous to me, but they're counting everything. Like, did you decide tonight to eat the chicken fingers or did you decide to eat, something else, the macaroni and cheese? And some of you are going, neither. Okay, I get it. You made a decision. Some of them are somewhat inconsequential, although if you eat a lot of those chicken fingers, it might add up over time, right? And so there's that. But 35,000 decisions, and Jesus actually boils it down, and he says, actually, like only one thing is needed, and the question is this, is will you put yourself in a posture of discipleship? Will you center your life on me? Mary has chosen the good portion. In fact, this phrase is interesting, the good portion. This actually has the idea of being a good part or a good meal. You see how those are connected? A good part would be like a good part of the dinner or a good part of the pie. My kids and I, we go to the farmer's market and we buy naan bread, like a big circle of bread, right? And we'll just rip that thing up and we'll eat that, right? It's phenomenal. We eat that with Greek food. And as we tear that up, right, like my kids know, that's the good part, I'm taking that part. The other day, I took my 17-year-old, soon-to-be 18-year-old daughter, she's a senior this year in high school, out to a restaurant called Faux Forever, right? We went out to this restaurant. I ordered something, never really ordered there before. She goes there all the time. She ordered another meal. It was the better portion. The whole time I'm eating, I'm like, I want that. Here's the thing. Mary's choice should cause you to go, that's what I want. Have you ever had someone order something at the table next to you at a restaurant? You're like, I'll take what they're having, whatever that is over there. This is that. Where Mary makes this decision and Jesus says she made the better choice on the menu. She's chosen the better meal. Think about the significance of this. Because what she's chosen will never be taken from her. Martha's making a meal too, right? I mean, that's why she's all frustrated and flustered. And she's making food for everybody. But how long is that meal going to last? I mean, tonight, there's 13 guys counting Jesus and maybe more. Like, that meal's not lasting very long. And then it's gone. How many of you busy your lives doing the tasks and things that will not last? Jesus says, Mary's made the better choice, and actually this meal that was served to her through my words, this meal is actually going to last not only her lifetime, but forever. You might push back and say this like, but I can't do it. I mean, I just have so many things. Don't you know? Everything that I'm involved in, I'm so anxious, I'm distracted. I have so many things. I'm so busy. I get it. But maybe have you stopped to think that maybe the reason why we're so anxious and distracted and troubled is because we have so many things? And because we haven't sat at the feet of the one who's in control, because we've actually idolized our culture and the world around us and said we have to be doing all of these things, when Jesus wants to slow us down and go, no, I want you, not just all you do. Mary chose better not because she was better, but because Jesus was better. And I think she modeled her life after Jesus. I think she saw this in Jesus. I think she saw Jesus go into the mountains to pray. I think she saw him getting alone to be quiet with his Father. I think she saw this in Jesus. I mean, throughout Luke's gospel, Luke chapter 3, Luke chapter 5, Luke chapter 6, Luke chapter 9 twice, all leading up to Luke chapter 10, Jesus goes away and is quiet by himself with the Father. I think Mary saw that posture in Jesus and went, I'll do that. That's the better choice. Right after this, Luke chapter 11, guess what the disciples do? Hey, Jesus, will you teach us how to pray? The disciples are going, oh, let's model ourselves after him. So here's this interesting dynamic then. Mary gets something in this moment by her sitting and her listening. Because the next time we pick her up in her story, here's the interesting thing that happens. Mary listens. But as we see her later in her story, she again comes up to the feet of Jesus. It's exactly 1 week before he's going to be in the tomb. Think about this. The disciples don't know it. They don't get it. Jesus has been telling them. They've not been listening. A week left with him. That's all they have left with him. They're fighting over who's the best. They're distracted. But Mary comes into the room, and she sits down at the feet of Jesus. She takes the most expensive thing that she owns, this jar of perfume, and she takes it out and she breaks off the top of it and she begins to pour it on the feet of Jesus. And it's kind of this, I realize, kind of this awkward moment. But what she's doing is actually adoring him extravagantly. She's worshiping him. And it's kind of a burial custom. It's weird because she's like burying him a week before he's going to be buried. And they don't even know that he's going to get buried. But she knows. Why? How does she know? because she took on the posture of discipleship and she was listening. He had been saying it. And she knew that Jesus was going to take a posture of death for her. That Jesus' posture was actually going to prioritize her. It was going to prioritize you. That Jesus' posture points to his priorities, and his priority is you. She knew that was coming, and so she worshiped him at his feet, sat at his feet. Her listening led to her worshiping. So, in my own life, this text has caused me to take a different posture. To be honest, when I was assigned this text early this year, I was struggling with, can we just call it all that? Distraction, anxiety, and a heart that was troubled. I'm not proud to tell you that I just live in kind of a burnt out life. Kind of got to the end of the semester. I'm just kind of like, I'm done. I got nothing in the tank. I get an email, hey, we want you to preach on Mary and Martha. And I'm like, well, I'm like Martha. So one of the disciplines I've been trying to practice is what I'm just going to call a Martha or a Mary prayer. Sometimes I'll go home in my living room when no one else is there. Sometimes it'll be in my office. I'll shut the door. Today it was in the dorm room, just kind of getting ready for this evening. And I'll take on a posture that just says, Jesus, I want to prioritize you. Put my phone away, turn it on airplane mode, all the things we talked about this morning. But my posture actually was this. I had someone else kind of teach me this posture. Sometimes in my anxieties, in my troubles, in my distractions, I have thoughts that swarm around my head kind of like flies on a 4th of July picnic. I mean, they're all over the place, right? And sometimes I'll just take my hands and I'll just kind of symbolize the fact that I'm holding on to these distractions. And like Martha, what I need to do is actually let go of them. And I'll actually just kind of, in this prayer posture, just kind of, Jesus, I have this thing at work, finances with our family. I have these things that I'm holding on to, these pressures that I feel to perform, to be impressive rather than to impress people with you. And God, I'm like Martha. I'm not with you. I'm just around you. I'm doing your things. I'm preaching. I'm teaching. Going to church. I'm an elder at church. I just need to set some of these things down right now. And I'll just do that from time to time, just over and over again. Just, these are the things I'm holding on to, and I need to let them go. And I'll kind of just have that posture of letting go. I don't know, maybe it's awkward. I think sometimes Jesus calls us to be countercultural, maybe a little bit awkward. And I'll just sit in my living room by myself quietly, maybe some music without lyrics in the background just to kind of help keep me from being distracted. And then I'll actually turn my hands back over and I'll be in the posture of Mary. And I'll just sit in Jesus' presence. I'll say, Jesus, I want to hear what you want to say. I want to encourage you with this. Most of what Jesus wants to say is going to be in his word. So what I want to have done is have read his word and then remember his word and listen. Mary listened to Jesus. So maybe you have your Bible open in front of you. A lot of times I memorize things. Here's 2 of the verses I memorized. Philippians 4, 5 and 6. The Lord is at hand. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything. You hear that? Don't be anxious about anything. Let it go. But in everything, with prayer and petition, supplications, present your requests to God. Pray. And the peace of God, which surpasses understanding, you don't even have the ability to comprehend it. The peace of God, which surpasses understanding, will guard your heart and your mind. I need the peace of God to guard my heart and my mind. It's being torn apart by the enemy. He's like a roaring lion, like a pack of wolves devouring me. And the peace of God will guard your heart and your minds in Christ Jesus. Maybe it's 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 and 7. It says, cast all your anxieties upon the Lord because he cares for you. Cast all your anxieties on the Lord because he cares for you. And just sit in the presence of Jesus as his disciple and know that he took on a posture that says he wants you, not just all the things you do.